Hello, welcome to Dear Dwyery. I'm back in the UK. I'm staying in my friend Chris's house. He's just moved in. Don't be too cruel. He's very generously allowed me to stay here for the next couple of weeks because I'm all over the place for the next 2 months. Going back to Ireland for my stag, bachelor party, I guess, for you Americans. My wedding then in August. I'm going to Comic-Con the week before my wedding. In fact, I went for a run this morning in Finsbury Park as part of the pre-wedding lose weight shenanigans. I'll have to lose all this weight as well. My lady will not be appreciating the beard fluff. But I wanted to talk about some of what happened at the Electronic Triple, because I've kind of had like 2 days to let it sink in and think about it. Most specifically, I want to talk about some of the stuff that happened on stage 2 that I was presenting, that either happened off camera or just some things I inferred from the interviews that we had. In terms of kind of high concept grand ideas about all of E3 2013, it was fucking great. It was only my second E3, but it was crazy. Like, you were there, you were watching it. You probably saw more of it than I did if you were watching online. I know I certainly feel like I've seen more of E3 in years I've watched it on GameSpot than in the 2 years I've been hosting it. Last year I didn't even touch a controller. This year I got to touch both new controllers. PS4 controller feels great. I'm not a fan of the DualShock 3. I think the DualShock 4 is very good weight to it, good size. Triggers are fixed. Touchpad's weird, but whatever. Excuse me. It's got that light on it, which is cool. I guess the Xbox One controller, I paid loco cycle for like 5 minutes on it, and that feels really good too. It's got this kind of sweet little camber on the triggers, which I really appreciate. But enough about that. Oh yeah, and in terms of the actual console wars or whatever, I kind of felt like this year maybe there was a console war for the first time. I felt like Sony went for the jugular, and I thought that E3 Sony conference was fucking nuts. It was great. I think Microsoft are genuinely in trouble. I think if anyone was buying a console in November and they had a friend buying consoles, why would they get a console where they couldn't swap games with their mates immediately when there is no second-hand market even? Like, just being able to swap games with your friends who've bought this new console. Like, anytime I've bought a console in the first 6 months, I remember ensuring it was the one that my friends had so I could swap games, so I wouldn't have to spend a fortune on top of spending a fortune on the console. In saying that as well, with the prices of those two consoles, I think it's apples and oranges. $400, $500. We spend fucking that much on a phone now. It's not the same as 8 years ago. Like, the value, money ain't the same. I know we live in a world where the fucking economics are a bit all over the place at the moment, but I think $100 at the end of the day is not too much of a difference. But I think with the value proposition PlayStation are adding, with all the used stuff still being cool, I think that decision is made incredibly easy, at least for launch. But I want to talk about some of the stuff that we had on the on stage. I'm going to do it real quick because this is the 3rd time I've recorded this, so I'm going to try and get it under the 18-minute mark that the last one broke at. So day 1 we had a couple of interesting games. Killzone Shadowfall, we had first up. That game looks like a Killzone game. It looks bad. They seem to have addressed a couple of issues people had. It looks more not open world, but it looks like there are options in that game and where you can proceed through the levels, which looks interesting. But then that could just be E3ification of their gameplay. The color palette looks pretty varied. If you didn't like that about the old Killzone, it looks great. But there's no doubt in my mind that exists because Sony wants to have a first-person shooter, first-party game when they launch that console. So, I've no doubt the guys at the Grill are very passionate about it. You could tell when I was interviewing them. But I played Killzone 2 because it looked great and I appreciate the weight in it and stuff. But they're not games that I write home about really. One of the games that did shock me though was the Bureau. That's the XCOM Declassified, the third-person shooter game. That game is not what I thought it would be. It's not a third-person shooter in the way you'd expect, like something like Gears of War or Splinter Cell or Tomb Raider. It's more of a... it kind of feels like more like, or looks more like Rainbow Six or Rogue Spear or SWAT 4. It's kind of you're doing a lot of squad management, and I like what they've done with the visual style and where it's set and some of the places they're going to go in the storyline. I'm way more interested in that game than I was before I interviewed Morgan Gray about it. So I guess good job, Morgan, on the interview. But yeah, that looks way better. So if you'd only checked out that like first person stuff we had before, like back in E3 2010, you should probably check out the gameplay or the interview of that, because it looks pretty good. Ended up that day with Patrick back from DICE on Battlefield 4, massive Battlefield fan. I am one of the weird people who actually enjoyed the single player from BF3, but I grilled him a little bit about some of the issues that BF3 had in relation to the QuickTime events, and I asked him if there was a dog in the game, and he should have seen the face when I asked him that question. I'm not sure if it was on camera. Maybe it was. He said there were dogs in the fishing in Baku trailer or gameplay thing, and look what happened to them. That was all I could get out of them. They died. But it looks really good. What I do with interviews, at least at E3, because it's usually the first time you're seeing stuff, is, and I do this, I did last year, I feel like I kind of softballed people I was filling in for Chris Waters on stage 1, and I feel like I had maybe rabbing the headlights kind of thing, because I've been watching GameSpot streams for like 6-7 years by that stage, and I was sitting on that stage, and it was kind of this overwhelming experience, and I feel like I haven't really watched back many of those interviews, let's say. So this year I was kind of determined to get some good shit out of it. So what I do is, we had 35-minute interviews. They're pretty long. We had like 40-minute slots instead of 15, which was on stage 1. And I usually spend the first 5-10 minutes letting the person on, like whether it's a developer or a PR person, kind of get through their checklist of shit they know they have to talk about. Which you can usually infer from what they've shown or what they've talked to you before you go live. So usually let them get that shit out of the way, and then I try to get real specific about what the game is about, to basically allow people who are watching to feel like they're getting the nuance of actually playing the game. So Battlefield 4, I was asking pretty specific questions about what shit can get blown up, what would happen if you were on the building, stuff like dedicated servers and stuff like that. And Patrick Back was really open about it, which is great. On day 2, I had Dan Greenwald on, and he was similarly, it's for Forza 5, and he was similarly open about all that shit. I also got the impression that they're doing some stuff with Formula 1, and they haven't announced it yet. They've added IndyCar to it, I think a couple of circuits and a couple of cars. I have a feeling they're going to do the same thing with Formula 1. He said they'd be talking about announcements in the coming months. I just imagine that if they went to the bother of putting open-wheeled cars in that game, that they wouldn't just have an indie section. I feel like they probably are going to have a couple of concept cars that are open-wheel, and I imagine some sort of stuff in relation to Formula 1 or maybe Formula 2. I don't know. I'm seeing F1 the next F1 game in a month's time, which apparently is very interesting as well with Codemasters. So I know they have that license locked up, so perhaps it's a Formula 2 thing. I don't know. But I think that there's something going to come out of that. Arkham Origins looks like a really good Arkham game again. I've never completed any of those games. I'm not a fan of that. It's just me. That games like brawlers or whatever, like I've never been into in a big way. I love those games. I appreciate those games, and I could see the quality in them, but it doesn't appeal to me as much as other games, so I've never completed one. Arkham Origins looks pretty great. Those guys are new team, passionate team. They definitely love the franchise, and they're doing their best to make a good game. I think whether or not that game is one you buy comes down to whether or not you're sick of playing Batman games, Arkham games, rather than the quality of the game, because I would imagine that's going to look pretty good. We had Hex Shards of Fate on, which is this weird trading card MMO. Corey Jones, the guy who did the Kickstarter for it. I have no interest in trading card games, and I'm going to play that game. And that's one of the great things that comes out of E3, is that often when you sit down with somebody and they tell you about their game, it's way better than just watching a trailer, because it's like if your friend's band was, your friend keeps going on and on about his band, and then eventually you listen to them and you're like, yeah, that's alright. Whereas if you listen to them on the radio, or if you just stumbled upon them yourself on their MySpace page, you probably wouldn't be into them as much. So that happens at E3 a lot, where you talk to someone about their game. It might be a weird ass game, like what else did I play? Like Deadfall Adventures or Dragon's Prophet, like games that I probably never give the time of day, but I'm probably going to give it a go once they come out. At least with Hex Shards of Fate. I'm not sure if I'm going to play Dragon's Prophet. It's an MMO about dragons, where you can't fight in the air. That game looked super early to be showing at E3. But the guy I interviewed, Todd, is a pretty cool guy. Dragon's Prophet. If you like dragons and MMOs, get on it. Company Heroes 2 was very interesting looking. We also had Rome 2, which was... Because Company Heroes 2, they got bought by Sega when the THQ thing happened, and they're in this weird situation where like two of the most prestigious strategy games, historical strategy games, Rome 2 and Company of Heroes 2, are now both being published by EA, or by Sega. They were saying those guys were meeting up and they were kind of getting along, kind of getting to know each other and shit. But it doesn't look as it doesn't look as impressive as Rome 2, because Rome 2 just looks stellar. But I love Company Heroes 1. It's arguably among the best strategy games ever created. So, yep, more Company Heroes. I'm in. Arma 3 I had at the end of that day. It looks like they're trying to fix a lot of the issues in relation to getting people to, the accessibility of Arma. I was talking to the dude, I think it was Jay, about the game in relation to, are they going to nerf it? Have they ever thought about going to consoles? I think they are thinking of going to consoles, but he was very firm in talking about that they're not going to nerf that game. It's still very much a simulation game. It's just that they have made it they'll have proper tutorials, better voice acting, and stuff like that, which that series has been crying out for a long time. Tiny Brains I had on start of day 3. Got to use a PS4 controller for the first time. It's a 4-player, like a logic puzzle, physics puzzle, platformer, co-op. Very cool. Really enjoyed it. I could see that being a really good party game. Malik and Simon, the guys who are making that, very passionate. That game's never going to come out on Xbox One because they self-publish, although they were... I won't say that because they said they were looking for publishers maybe for Xbox One. But it looks really great. Actually, that's a common theme as well. There were so many indie games that we had on, or that I met people afterwards or on the show floor who were not coming to Xbox One because of all the restrictions they have on publishing. In fact, later that day I had Scribblenauts en masse, and I got the impression, although I couldn't get him to admit it on camera, that they are also going to try and release that on Xbox One, or that they have some other type of game in the works. It sounded from when I was talking to him beforehand that they had dev kits, although he was very much looking at the PR person throughout the interview whenever I asked him in relation to that stuff. So if you're a Scribblenauts fan, I don't know, and you're going to get a next gen console, who knows? It's on everything else at the moment anyway. We showed Fable Anniversary with Ted Timmons for the first time. We got exclusive gameplay on that. That was one of those interviews that came last minute. We had that and The Division on day 3, which were interviews that were organised, I think, in the 24 hours beforehand. We kind of slotted them in. Because we had these 40-minute sections, we could easily chop them in half and then fit in the extra parts. So that was cool to show that game off for the first time. I'd never played the first Fable game. I didn't own an Xbox One, but I did enough research on it to ask him questions about it. The game looks good. It's a HD remake. They may add new quests via DLC, and it's got Smart Glass. We got the Smart Glass way out of the bit at the start, which was good. I don't give a shit about Smart Glass. I had Josh on for Dead Rising 3. They're now part of Capcom Vancouver, I think. What were they called before? Blue something, when they made Dead Rising 2. So I was talking to Tom McShade the day before. He wrote an interesting article about Dead Rising 3's new direction. I talked to some of the guys from GameSpot and Giant Bomb who saw the Dead Rising 3 Behind Closed Doors demo, which very much also sounded like it was in this new direction. So I tried to ask him some pretty difficult questions about that, without being too harsh, because a lot of what we were criticizing was inference from, we inferred it from the gameplay trailer, which was only 6 minutes long or something. It sounded to me like they were put aback by the reaction that they had, Um, it definitely looks more serious. It sounded to me, I forget the words exactly he used. It was something like, we're using E3 as an evaluation period or something, like they were evaluating what people were saying. That's not, word for word. I can't remember exactly what he said, but I found that pretty interesting. I found like they were put aback by the criticisms, and perhaps they're going to take that back with them. Those guys made Dead Rising 2, which, if you remember, was very much criticized when it was coming out because it was so different again. New protagonists, different mechanics. They're taking out stuff now that's very much pillars of the Dead Rising experience, so I can see why people are getting a little bit arsy about it. And what worries me is that now they're owned by Capcom, who before they were just doing, they were working for them as a third party or a second party. In fact, he said when they got Dead Rising 2, they were given like absolutely no assets or anything. They would build it completely by scratch. So those guys have been used to being criticized, and they're used to working in that, redeveloping a game, but I just hope that Capcom are keeping their fucking fingers out of it. Because I said to him, like the last Capcom franchise, the last franchise that Capcom westernized was Resident Evil 6, and we all, saw the shit show that turned out to be. Are you worried that it'll happen with Dead Rising? So he was very honest about it. I only had a short time with him though as well, but yeah, that was a worthwhile interview. I like that one. Had Craig Skip. I can never say his fucking surname. Skitsimas. Craig from Screw Attack, the guy with the cap, Angry Video Game Nerd cap, who also built Screw Attack. I had him on to show Angry Video Game Nerd Adventures. Who's ringing me? My brother. I'll have to talk to him later. Sorry, Alan. He's organising my bachelor party. Decline. Oh, he's fucking texting me as well. Yeah, I better hurry this up because this thing might break again. Yeah, that was that game looks great. I didn't play as well as I thought it would. It looks interesting. If you're a fan of that series, go for it. DayZ Standalone was awesome because I had Dean Hall on, who's the guy who made DayZ, who just climbed Everest. That was a really interesting interview. The Division we had on last minute. We had Ryan and Nicholas to show that game off. That game looks fucking great. That's my game of the show. I love the idea. I've been going on about having open world first person shooter games for fucking ages. When Far Cry 3 came out, I was like, this is the one that's going to break it through. If somebody can make it like an MMO like that, or an MMO like Fallout, would be in the business. And I'm delighted that they've done it. And I think Ubisoft have once again had game of the show. That is Ubisoft, right? I think it's Ubisoft. Whatever. Keep going. And then last up on day 3, I had David Goldfarb with Payday 2, which was great because that dude is super interesting. He was the creative guy on Bad Company 2 and Battlefield 3, and by the sounds of it, he was very fucking happy to get away from that series. I'm not sure if it was because of EA or because of DICE, but I didn't ask him any of that stuff on the stream because I wanted to talk about Payday 2, which is interesting as well in its own way. I only played the first one briefly. This one's a full box product instead of just being a downloadable game. Yeah, it looks great. I love SWAT 4, those games where you're managing a situation and you've got a couple of dudes, and it's not a million miles away from that. So I didn't get to play it myself, so I couldn't see what the AI was like, but I liked all the, holding guys up and then tying them up and putting them in body bags and micromanaging situations with people. And then when we went into the room and the shutters went down and shit, when they hit the alarm, I got a little kind of tingle in my goosebumps. Maybe because I used to work in a bank. I don't know. Yeah, I think that's pretty much everything. Did I skip anything? Just in case this video shuts off, subscribe. No, I think that's the lot. Ascend Hand of Cool I had Brandon and Brett on for that. Last year I interviewed those when it was called Ascend New Gods. That game looks, well, I couldn't tell because we couldn't get the gameplay working, so I was just talking to them for half an hour, but they're really interesting guys, so there was no problem talking to them. But yeah, I'm looking forward to playing that. That's free to play, coming out on Xbox 360. And that's it. That was my E3, at least in terms of the interviews. I had an absolute ball. It was great working with all our US colleagues once again for 5 weeks. A part of me is very sad to be back here because I really enjoyed working with those guys, and America, that West Coast of America is just incredible. Had a couple of days in LA with a buddy of mine from back home who lives in the Valley, which was great as well. Yeah, I think that's it. That was my E3. At least in terms of the interviews. I had an absolute ball. It was great working with all our US colleagues once again for 5 weeks. A part of me is very sad to be back here because I really enjoyed working with those guys, and America, that West Coast of America is just incredible. Had a couple of days in LA with a buddy of mine from back home who lives in the Valley, which was great as well. LA is much nicer when you get out of the city. It's a shithole in the city, but when you go out to where people actually live, it's not, at least in the valley, not South Central. It's pretty nice. And yeah, it was great to be there. I'll be back out there for San Diego Comic-Con in next month. But for the next while, I'm concentrating on the new show, The Point, which I talked about in the last video. Escape from Main Stupid being dead. We're still going to keep doing those videos, but they'll just be history ofs, and they won't be part of a series. My new show is going to be weekly. It's going to be slightly shorter videos. It'll be 5 minutes instead of 10 minutes. And then instead of being the history of games, it'll be about topics in the zeitgeist that week. So I am currently thinking of what to do for the first one, which will probably be a pilot as well. So if you have any suggestions, let me know. I'm thinking maybe talk about Dead Rising 3 a bit. Maybe some stuff for ND3, and maybe something that comes up later in this week on Gaff or Reddit, which would be cool to talk about. But yes, if you have any suggestions, by all means, please let me know. Do my job for me. I have got a shitload of washing to do, clothes washing and drying. I have to get keys cut for this place. I have to send shit to Dubai to my fiance. I gotta send out my wedding invites. I got shit to do. It's 11:30. 7 hours left in the day to do it before all the shops closed. So I'm gonna bid you farewell. Subscribe, why not? Follow me on Twitter. Fucking Google Plus. I don't know. Don't follow me on Google Plus. I fucking hate Google Plus. My friend keeps posting pictures of ski trips I went on years ago when I was really fat, and then sometimes it automatically thinks that I'm someone else on a different ski trip. So now my Google Plus account has like loads of pictures of some fucking other Irish dude who I don't know who he is. The police are coming! Alright, I'm out. Stop recording! I missed the button.